all are made up or composite of network, or you need to understand the basic networking concepts for these. Okay, I won't be going into much deeper into each and every topics, but whatever components or networking concepts which actually exist on Azure, yeah, we would be interested to talk about. If I feel that certain concepts which can be learned by own, I'll try to skip them, and I'll just tell you beforehand. So this is some whenever we talk about virtual networks or the subnets, or like we're going to talk about ACLs and other stuff, like we take care of at Azure, like if you are bringing up your infrastructure and you are responsible to how do you going to manage those infrastructure. Okay, so how you're going to manage traffic which would be coming into your resources, hitting into your resources, and which would be going out of your resources. So you need to take control of traffic which would be coming into your resources, and how you're going to tackle is your responsibility. So for that we have few kind of concepts, something called as network security groups, ACLs, access control lists, and other stuffs. We have all each and every mechanisms which actually even we have user defined routes. Okay, so we will be talking about these particular concepts one by one. So one that particular interesting concept is network security groups. So network security groups, as by definition, you can see that it just provides a network isolation of each and every Azure resources which you have. And how does it do is like it follows certain rules which you define on VNets basically. Okay, so basically network security groups you can apply on VNets, okay, or subnets. Okay, so you have certain defined rules. You'll say that you just allow HTTP traffic, you just allow FTP traffic onto every resources which are part of my VNet. Okay, and that rule would be embedded to that particular VNet or NSG. So what happens is, like, whenever Azure host traffic, Azure hosted host like virtual machine or cloud service receives the traffic, and if it's a part of a VNet and there are rules defined on it, it will check that that particular Azure host have inbound traffic, yes or no, like whether inbound traffic can come in or no. Okay, if it's yes, then it would load up all the NSG rules whatever we have. So whatever NSG rules we have, there are default rules of NSGs as well which persist. Even if you have even if you have created a VNet, and if you have not defined, you have created an NSG and you didn't define a rule, but the default rule says that don't allow traffic, and it won't allow the traffic until unless you provide one more rule above it which can supersede that particular priority. So the user as a customer, if you add a rule on top of NSG, so what are the default rules are there, they would be overridden because they are with a lesser priority. Your user or customer rule would be having a higher priority. So if you have some NSG rules on inbound traffic, it will just load up and allow, it will load up your first rule and check if the rule matches, and if it allows, then if it says that deny rule, then just allow. It overrules that particular rule, then the packet would be allowed. If a rule says that HTTP is not allowed, then it will drop those packets. So even if it's hitting your resources, if you have certain resources like the web front end resources, and where you doesn't want to get a call from traffic from specific calls, like maybe FTP calls, you don't want to allow them. So in that case, you can whenever the request comes, you can drop them. So when we talk about how things communicate or resources communicate on internet is via packets. So communication would be via packet. If it's need to send some certain, like think of it need to send certain communication, like it want to talk in XML, so they would be splitted in packets, and then packets would be sent from sender to receiver. Okay, sender makes a lot of packets if it's large file, and then it splits that package and it sends from internet to internet to the web resource. Like that, everything communicates in Azure or any other on cloud or on internet, over the internet. So for that only, if you know the packets, which particular packet to allow, which particular packet to drop, nature of packets we need to allow and drop. According to that, you can define the rules on top of your Azure resources. So one such rule would be interested in defining in here. Okay. Which I'll be defining in here is like, yes, it's getting recorded. Would be like contest.com want to make a call to via Azure Load Balancer to my web front end. Okay, and I can put up certain NSG rules stating that contest.com can only make an HTTP call, or any other client via this particular domain can't make a FTP call or other type of calls. And my NSGs defined over it would will try to drop the packets if it's not expected. That's what is NSGs. And we'll go through a demo for NSGs as well. So something like next concept is user defined routes. User defined routes, it actually controls traffic by defining routes. Okay, it would rather defining a rule like network security groups. What user defined routes would do, it would provide a route. So this is a route you need to go, so it will give a route to the packets which are coming in from the sender. Okay, and then it would route via maybe you can think that if calls are coming like in this particular diagram, if I have I take up a VM, okay, and this particular VM I have kept for analyzing the packets or traffic which is coming in from public. So whenever the internet would try, I mean my calls are coming over the internet, okay, and it's trying to it hits a front end subnet. Okay, what happens is like if in order to make your website secure, you may take up certain packets of them, and then you may try to if the calls are going from you may try to track those packets and check whether they are malformed or they are trying to I mean these packets are harmful or not. Or in cases scenarios like where internet traffic is coming to front-end subnet, and front-end subnet need to talk with back-end subnet, but you want to invigilate this particular set of packets which come from front-end to front-end subnet to the back-end subnet. So what you can do is like you can define UDRs or user-defined routes and state that whatever the packets which need to go to the backend from the from the front-end subnet, it need to go via this particular VM appliance. Okay, virtual machine, and this particular virtual machine can be having certain kind of NAT rules. Okay, and it may have some web application firewall rules also itself, so that you can read every packets and you can check that whether it's harmful or not, and then pass it on to your backend subnet, because you don't want your data to get corrupted with certain calls, which certain harmful calls. Okay, that's what is user defined routes. And this particular diagram is also same. It would define the same, which is there here, just an pretty old diagram. And we have something called as force tunneling. So force tunneling is also one more mechanism. Okay, what you can do, you can redirect your the internet traffic. So it's also the same features like UDR, where actually you do a packet inspection, okay, before putting your traffic onto your directly to your front end web server. So what you can do is like sometimes like over a period like once in a day, you can go and select up force configure with force tunneling, and what it would do is like instead of putting your internet traffic directly to your front end web servers, it would what it would do, it would take out that particular internet traffic, and it can route your traffic via other servers to your backend or mid-tier applications, instead of giving, if certain cases like where your database administrator want to interact with the backend server, and instead of him directly giving him access directly via internet, and and then he trying to access this particular thing, what you can do, you can give an access via an on-prem server, so that whenever you try to make an access this particular service, the call goes via your on-prem server, and where you can actually, you have this forced tunneling where your packets are forced to go via this particular machines, and you can inspect these particular machines whether these particular packets with this the help of this on-prem machines, whether they're genuine or they are allowed or not, or the database administrator who is trying to access this particular service is carrying some specific they're using some secure tools to access your databases or not. Okay, and that's what is force tunneling. You can read more about the force tunneling and integration with the VPN gateway in this particular article. Yes, if you are interested, go ahead and try out to make a VPN gateway. We will we'll work on the VPN gateway in later episodes or later sessions, and you can work out on the VPN gateway beforehand, and have a force tunneling on it. So the concept of cross-premise network connectivity. So we talked about all the mechanisms where you can filter your wrong traffic before it comes to hits your web server. So one more such thing, before tracking, or that was another way of making your application secure, but there are other ways the other ways are there where you can make your application secure, like the network connectivity, or by setting up VPNs or virtual networks, VNets. Okay, basic bound with Azure virtual networks are like they are basically subscription bound, and they can't interact with the virtual networks across subscriptions. So for that only we have something called as regional virtual network, or you should have, if you have two different VNets in two different subscriptions, you need to set up a site-to-site VNet connections in order to connect those both VNets. Okay, so there are scenarios where you would be interested to connect two different subscriptions, VNets in two different subscriptions, like we have two different teams which are working across two different geographical areas, and each of these teams have their own build servers in a particular VNet, in a different VNet, and they are part of two different subscriptions as well. So in that cases, what you're gonna do, when you club up the teams across the globe, you need to have these all machines, VNets, in a single these all build servers in a single VNet, so that you can developers can roll out their code to any of the build servers, irrespective of regions where they're sitting. So this particular scenario is called as regional VNet. Okay, and previously the VNets were limited to a single affinity group. So that affinity group is like putting up all your resources, whatever you want, and whichever is resources which are part of affinity group in nearby VMs in a DC. Okay, so this is some like a diagram of a regional VNet. Okay, so in the ASM portal, when we talk about VNets just used to stick to affinity groups, which means that the resources which you provision under a VNet would be part of servers which are co-located or very nearly located. But when it comes to ARM, and we have certain flexibility where our VNet actually doesn't stick to an affinity group, and it can be, it can span across your resources if you made it a part of a VNet, and you can span those resources across any of the VM servers. Even it doesn't depend upon a single rack or nothing. It has an independency of it, and it can span across your resources. If they are part of a VNet, they can span across scale units in a single DC. Okay, and when we talk about a regional VNet, and they are of four different types. Like we have point to site VPN, we have site to site VPN, we have express route, and we have something called as VNet to VNet VPN as well. We will be talking about these all scenarios in our upcoming slides, and you can deploy VNets via using ARM deployment model, and which actually is flexible than the classic or ASM model which we had, because ARM model, everything, whatever content we have or the resources, everything we have, they can be written, or can be talked, or can be provisioned it with respect to a JSON templates. You can write a JSON templates, and then you can reuse them, just rename the VNet names, and then you are good to use it again. I mean, the reusability increases with the ARM kind of deployment model, and they are asynchronous, and since ARM has a concept of resource group, so they are every resources you can group it well in under a resource group, so it's easy to delete or configure or manage resources, like create up a VNet and or the subnets or the public IPs. Everything is easy by ARM deployment model. Okay, and since the networking components, whatever there, like irrespective of it's a DNS server or the public IP or NICs or IP addresses or load balancers or application gateways or the VMs, can be independently deleted. It doesn't depend that everything is connected on on Azure, and you can't delete. You need to recreate each and everything once you delete. Once you delete a single object, it doesn't delete whole of the resources which you have, a bunch of resources which you have created together. Okay, and that's what. Let's go to a demo. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use CLI, and we'll create a virtual network. Okay, and we'll create a front end subnet, and we will create a backend subnet. Okay, we created a lot of times this particular VNet and subnets, but we did via portal. Okay, so we have a partial script, and I have a CLI script as well. Okay, CLI goes via, you can run via a bash. So in order to if you don't want to install bash, you need to go via CloudShell. Okay, I'll just switch on my CloudShell. So as we discussed about this particular bash prompt or CloudShell previously, it's in our initial sessions. So it's just another, what it do, it's just a client which actually runs on a Linux machine, and that particular Linux machine gonna talk with our Azure resources, or whenever you make a call, you run a script on them, that would make a call to Azure to your subscription, to your subscription. Okay, so but before that, this is also a different or independent client, but each and every time we a client or partial needs to interact with Azure, it need to authenticate. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna authenticate this particular bash client, I mean the Linux VM which is actually behind this particular bash client to the Azure Okay, how we can do that is let this particular bash client connect to that particular Linux machine, and once it shows, then it would show you after it connects, you can make something called as AZ login, so which is called as Azure login. and it has a different way of connecting to Azure login. Last time when we ran this, we actually our demo got failed because it this particular shell had issues. Okay, and I have worked with Corey Sanders, and you may be knowing, and we have fixed that particular issue. uh, so I'll just make as login. So when I type as login, your Linux machine, this bash is had connected to Linux machine, and your Linux machine want to make a call with uh, to Azure. For that, you need to before you make a call, you need to authenticate via the device login page. Okay, then it will authenticate this particular client. So I just open Edge. What happens sometimes, like your browser, if you have signed in with your Windows Azure account, it may fail, like the authentication may fail. What you can do, you can try to log in with a fresh web browser where you have not used your Windows credentials. That's also a bug which I discovered today. Okay. Select my subscription email ID, Windows subscription email ID. So it's like authenticating your partial. While authenticating partial, also it would put up this authentication page, and you do this stuff. And once you do this stuff, come on, don't piss me. Yeah. Um, have issue, just clear up all your cache, because CloudShell having issues with that. See, we are able to sign in. Come on, come on, come on. So every time it fades. Come on. It used to work, but that's also working. Yeah, this is not working. The authentication is not working. It gives you lots of time, and it's giving now as well. This will also not work. This is also a bug. You can't open a link from CloudShell.
So it worked for me day before yesterday.
Yeah, man, that's a problem. And sometimes it works. And these kind of demos, right? Like I worked with, like if you click like this, and that won't work. Okay, that bug I have raised worked with Corey, but I think their team didn't fix till now.
Mhm.
We still have this issue. So even if I go to Edge, okay, I have Firefox, which is not. I have not logged in yet. Let me try. I mean, even if I clear everything, then also it's persisting somewhere and it's not logging in. It will say the same error that your password is wrong. This is all. Just before demo, I did this and that worked. I ran the script. It was working.
Uh,
And now come on, this will not work. I don't know. They did after over 2.0. This say this. Forgot your password. I have not yet entered my password. How can this say forgot password? Bad sign in experience. See, if I want, I'm trying to, even if I want to give also, I can't.
you already logged in, right? Is that causing problem?
No, I'm trying to log in.
No.
If it's
Yeah.
logged in, right, it would show that yeah, logged in. Like this, it will come and it will show logged in. And this session also
Not
doesn't.
work on
Uh-huh.
a bash. Yeah. The session. This is the session I'm talking about.
Uh,
All resources here also. The page that is open
I didn't get.
directly through browser. You already logged in, right? Why don't you try closing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
and
true. Yeah, exactly. But that for this client, right? What it do, this particular bash
yeah,
actually
just
runs in a.
authentication. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually runs on a Linux machine. That Linux machine need to be authenticated with Azure. Okay, that's why actually this all sign-in experience they have developed. I don't know whether. Let's see. We can run a command with my local bash which I have installed. I used to have a lot of issues with my local bash. That's why I have logged in as a root user. It's recognized as. I've installed all the necessary the Azure commands also so that this particular bash recognizes it. But certain times it says that AZ keyword I'm not able to recognize. Come on.
Girish, when you said you're logging with your Linux machine, I didn't understand. You're in
Yeah. So this
Windows
particular
machine, right?
CloudShell is there, right? You can see this CloudShell.
Yeah.
This particular cloud or the bash client and this bash client are the same. Okay. So this is also showing that same device login, same, right? So this is also
Yeah.
same client. Okay. So this client need to run somewhere, right? And this client is running on a Linux machine. Okay. It connected to Linux machine. Okay. Once it's it's an Girish underscore Kalamat at Azure. Okay. It would actually have a Linux machine. Okay. Shared Linux machine. And in that particular bash, it tries to connect. Okay. It connected now. Okay. When I say as login, that particular machine would try to authenticate with my Azure subscription, which I'm running here. Got it?
Yeah.
That Linux machine need to, like it would, we will try to run scripts to, via that particular Linux machine because it's a CLA command, right? Okay, we need to
Yeah.
have some Linux environment for doing that. Without that, we can't do. So either I can have a bash installed in here or directly go and use CloudShell, which is available. And this is a new feature which came up for running any CLS scripts. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, here also it's the same issue. It would say me to log in with this on this device, log in this particular URL, but my browsers are not letting me to do that. What I'm gonna do is even incognito they're not working. That's a problem. Let me try with the Edge incognito. Bash. Come on, authenticate. Okay, perfect. Logged in. Okay, let's see if we are able to run a script. I'll go to my script where I have placed. So this scenario we're trying to acquire, we need to have a VNet and a subnet inside it. And inside this particular subnet, we can have a web server placed. Okay. And for that, like first thing is like you would do is you need to create a resource group first. Come on. Go next and get fetch my account details. I have logged in. Okay. I just logged in successfully to my Azure account. You can see that it gives me my Azure account details, whatever I have. Okay. That shows that you are successfully logged in. After that, you need to create a resource group. So these are the CLI commands, which would be a little bit different than any partial script. So these will be a little bit, you can have a more understanding with this particular, say AZ, Z is Azure group is for resource group. They have shortcut names in CLI scripts. So I have the script, and you just where actually it mm, like says that I have created a resource group, and now I'm creating a under a VNet I'm creating a I'm creating a subnet to it under that particular test RG test resource group. My subnet name would be front end subnet. I'll also create my VNet and subnet in it. Okay, because subnet need to be part of some or the other VNets, right? So we gave a test VNet as our VNet name, and a resource group, and the subnet name is frontend. And we have defined around 24/24, so around 256 IP addresses we should be easily getting from Azure. Let's see. So this is my VNet details I have. Okay, the location, everything. And once that is done, I'll create one more subnet. I created a VNet. I created a front end with this particular IP set, and I'm creating a backend now. So this is how you run your CLI scripts. Okay, it depends upon like scenarios, or how your company is taking like for different kind of scenarios you would be using. For if you want to interact, you are like this again will give me VNet details itself. So once you say company says that you have Linux box from where you need to connect to Azure, then yeah, you have only this you have the CLI way of interacting from a Linux box. If it's a Windows machine, you can interact with your partials, because they are the default installations, right? So what I have is like I have the VNet, okay, and and that VNet have a subnet count as a 2, and the two subnets are the front end and the back end, and they have also succeeded. Okay, so the same you can check you can go and check in the portal. Okay, and I'll just refresh the page. Yeah, I have just VNet, and this VNet I've created a subnets. Yes, I have both of these subnets. Okay, we'll learn what are network security groups and what are route table, these stuffs next. So this is how we create via CLI. Another method, like I have put down my partial script as well. You can go follow them and create up. So what you can do is your task would be deploying a virtual machine into a VNet. Okay, you try to create a VNet, okay, and then deploy VMs, and the one VM creates two subnets, and then deploy one VM in front end web server, and one and front end subnet, and another in backend subnet. Okay, and try to make a call from this particular subnet to the backend subnet. Let me know whether you are able to make that call or not. That would be your next task. So you can do that. and we have 10 more minutes. Okay, we can't cover this in 10 minutes. So we'll talk about the next of our virtual machines tomorrow. Okay, and let us discuss about doubts today.